Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. You are here yet again for a weekly catch-up on my reading, and we are going to talk all my currently reading, everything I read this week, and everything I'm looking forward to reading. So I've got my pile as usual, and yeah, it was a decent reading week, mainly because of audiobooking. So I have been really struggling with print reading. Just sitting down and sitting there reading for hours and not really making a ton of progress. So I've been trying to spend a lot of time outside and audiobooking while I'm doing it. That's all been great. And I did mention last month with my TBR that I was trying to focus more toward audiobooking things I already own from my own shelves. So I have been doing that and doing pretty well, I think. So that's good. So let's talk about what I read. First, an absolute masterpiece, I think. My expectations were so wrong for this. The Employees by Olga Ravn and translated by Martin Aiken. I thought this was in a factory for some reason. I don't know. Yeah, this was so good. It's actually on a spaceship, so this is definitely sci-fi. I knew it had some speculative element, but it's totally, you're on a spaceship. These characters are, the employees are the crew of the spaceship telling a story in statements. Each page basically is a statement. And they're not all in order. You are uncovering their reactions as time goes on of these objects that were brought from a new planet onto their spaceship. And I would say this is kind of like a mix between Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, it's that level of weirdness, and To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. It's not quite as cozy, but like there's this really beautiful way that this portrays how integral sensory perception is to personhood, and it's just woven through the whole complete story, pretty much every page. And you're getting all of these different characters. You don't know who anyone is, like nobody really has names labeled or anything. There are both human and humanoid characters, and at times the humans are almost treated as less than the humanoids, and that's really interesting, kind of the way that plays out. Yeah, I don't have the vocabulary to really get across the elements and themes that I love. This is a very thematic and rich for its tiny package. So I would just really implore you to read this if that at all sounds interesting to you, because it was so good. Then, one that was a little less successful, I think, for me, is The Pretty One by Keah Brown. This is just a collection of essays about the intersection of being a woman of color and disability. So she has cerebral palsy and is writing about that from the perspective of pop culture and fashion and all of those elements, how they impact her life and her journey to self-acceptance and self-love. So I think this was very successful in some essays, specifically the last one where she does actually talk about that reaching self-love. She talks about having depression and the content warning for suicidal thoughts, that sort of thing. So the heavier ones, I think, were more impactful for me. But I like that she achieved a good balance between the light stuff and, moments of being boy crazy as a teenager and pop culture, her love for music, that sort of thing. So I do think it was a good balance. But for me, it was just not really anything new or fresh in terms of information or knowledge. So I valued having her perspective, because obviously she has a completely unique perspective that she's bringing to this. The writing didn't really stand out. There wasn't anything noteworthy in the style or prose, but I think it was, competently written. I think they were well edited because they didn't really go on terribly long in each essay. I think the main kind of critical thing I would say is it maybe comes across as many of her arguments are very black and white. And I think maybe that's age, and that as she gets older, she'll have more nuanced arguments about these things. But in several of the cases where she's making an argument about something, she's actively contradicted it in other places or kind of acted in contrary ways. So she, is behaving in one way and telling other people to behave in a different way, right? So I think specifically there is a chapter about discussing disability cures, basically, or the desire to cure disability, and specifically from a religious perspective. And there are many moments there that are a struggle for me because I come from a religious background, and I understood where she was going with a lot of it, and I agree with her actual perspective and her perception of her religion, and that there is a valid interpretation of the Bible that, you know, you can be fearfully and wonderfully made and created in God's image as a disabled person. Like, that is a completely valid interpretation of the Bible. However, also, she kind of fails to acknowledge when she had a negative interaction with someone who was kind of pushing this religious healing narrative. She is in denial that the only portrayals of disability in the Bible are either a curse or a magically cured. So when you're talking to someone else who is also coming from a biblical perspective, that is the only thing that they may have from the Bible perspective. There are churches that have within their doctrine the idea that if you are disabled in this life, in the next life, you will be made whole by not being disabled anymore in the afterlife. And like, she denies that actuality of that being a critical part of people's belief. And so she mentions having this kind of negative interaction with this person who was talking about faith healing and judging that, which is very much in denial about the realities of many people's Christian faith and what is part of their faith. So she talks about actually having this kind of discovery of her own religious belief and going through that, but the whole time she doesn't ever like have the self-awareness to comment on, well, here's the kind of things that people believe based on the Bible, here's what the Bible says, and here's how I interpret it. She doesn't really talk about that very much, and why she feels a different way. So I wish she had talked more about that or reconciled with that a little bit more. As well, beyond that specific element, the religious element, she also repeatedly talks about how, well, she gives the specific example of the fact that she's not a parent, so she can't comment on parenting, basically. So she's using that as a way of saying, well, people shouldn't be commenting on my choices as a disabled person. And then, you know, in terms of the parenting example, that's very ridiculous. Like, you don't have to be a parent to know, like, bad parenting. It's, you know, that's silly. You don't have to be a helicopter pilot to know that flying into a tree is bad. Yeah, there are common sense things that you can comment on. And meanwhile, through the whole book, she's doing the same thing to able-bodied individuals. So, you know, I just felt like there were so many places where she's arguing for one thing and actively behaving in the opposite way. So, you know, I just think that's going to take some growth and change. And otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good essay collection and was a fine read. So, yeah, some minor complaints. Then, an audiobook. And sadly, this is a chunky book from my physical TBR this year for my Gothic Ladies Just Vibes project. This is The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. Unfortunately, it's under 500 pages, so it doesn't count for my tomes, just by a smidge. But I did get through it on audio, and the audio was fantastic. This one is so hard to talk about. I really can't talk about plot at all. It is very atmospheric. It's following this community, a variety of characters in this community. It reminded me a lot of Once Upon a River in that aspect. And really, this Essex Serpent element, they believe there's a mythic serpent in the water, and they frequently blame, this community does, the serpent for problems in their community. So it is this element of, is this actually a mythic scapegoat for the problems of their community, or is it real? Is it actually bringing plague? Is it actually killing children or animals, or are there people who are bad who are just doing that? And so it's a very interesting and nuanced portrayal of that. The interconnections between these people are wonderful. There's kind of a religious versus a-religious discussion there, which I really loved. So this was definitely great. It really lived up to my expectations. I've heard some mixed things, and I think mostly the mixed is people not liking the lack of plot. This is very character focused, There's not a whole lot that happens, and it's really just down to this tangible, lush setting that you really have to sink into being a member of this community. So yeah, unfortunately, not much I can talk about other than it just being a really beautiful book. Then finally, another audio. I read The God of Last Words by A.J. Hackwith. This is the final in the Hell's Library trilogy. And I really enjoyed this because it is the finale. I can't really talk about it. The plot is very boilerplate similar to the previous books, and I think that's kind of what I would say about this. The first one felt very fresh. It's mythic fantasy set with angels and demons in this library in hell. And there are multiple libraries, not just this one library. So we're seeing yet another library in this case, and they go on a big adventure quest through underworlds, which has been the case in all three of the books. We see a lot of characters we have previously seen. So I think for the most part, almost everyone in here is a character that we've seen before. And I just love the mashup of all the underworld and mythic elements. We also have a very diverse cast, not just in terms of mythic characters, but in terms of, we actually have a polyamorous relationship in this one. We've previously had a sapphic relationship that was alluded to, and a gay relationship in the second book. So now we're getting a little bit of polyamory. It's very light though. The romance in all of these has been like a barely there thing, but it's clearly an element. So it's not like queer baiting sort of thing. Yeah, so I thought this was wonderful and fun. I think if you are looking for something that's really, really different from most things, because as I said, like this is really tackling many different mythologies and mashing them together. If you're looking for an adventure fantasy, like this is really, really great for that. It definitely has a strong plot. So it's the complete opposite of the previous book, where this is like very plotty. You get some character development, like there's a clear character arc and progress over the course of the trilogy, but there's not as much character focus as like many other books that I read. This is really plotty and fast-paced, I think. So highly recommend this series. It's really underread, I think, on BookTube. All right, then, stuff in progress. So I'm almost done with Real World by Natsuo Kirino. This was from my TBR from last month. And I am buddy reading Perfect Timing for Victober, The Warden by Anthony Trollope, which everybody on BookTube seems to have read. I'm already halfway through. I think we're going to get through quite a few chapters today, a little behind. And this one has been a real slow progress. As I said, physical reading has been tough. This one, I don't have audiobook available, so I can't mix it. So I'm like, I've probably read 12 hours and I've only gotten 100 pages. But we will keep chipping away at it. I have not read any more of Maria, and I think my next book to pick up is going to be Elder Race. So I want to start this weekend. So that is all my millions of books. I also started 2 ebooks, which I don't know if I'm going to continue on with either of them. We'll see. I'm on audio, have made a ton of progress on Foundry Side. Foundry Side is a book I've read before, so this is a second read on audio. I read it previously in print, and unfortunately only the first one is available on audio, but I do want to get the reread done of Foundry Side because book number 2 was on my TBR last year and I never got to it, and now book number 3 just came out, so I wanted to get through all 3 of those, and those are all over 500 pages, so I would love to like knock those out by the end of the year and chunk those up in my tomes. They're very quick and pacey, so they're really easy to read, I think. So yeah, I'm halfway through and absolutely loving it just as much as the first time. It's really, really good. So I think that's it for reading. As I mentioned, lots of time spent outside reading on audio. So I looked at my previous TBR. I was feeling a little bad about last month's TBR for September. It's October now, I can't believe it. And I was feeling pretty bad. And then I realized I got through I finished 2 books from my TBR and have at least started another 2 that are in my currently reading now. So before there, And then I also got through 4 books from my own shelves on audio. So I feel really good about that. And 2 of those were actually from my TBR shelf for this year. So yeah, I think that's great progress. I was feeling a little down about it because I've been struggling to read so much, but yeah, I think we're good. So, you know, I feel like everybody has been kind of having a lot of slumpiness lately. I don't feel like I'm alone. There may be general just stuff going on. I have for sure some personal stuff going on that's been really, really heavy and hard. But I'm kind of thinking I might want to do a video about like busting through a slump and how I keep reading through it. So that may be upcoming if I can get myself to do a video. I've not been wanting to make any like thinky videos lately, so I've had a lot of individual book reviews, wrapping up the BookTube prize, all of that stuff. So yeah, I think we'll see. We'll see if I can get that together, and maybe we'll have a slump buster video. So in terms of my week, not a lot I really want to talk about. It was a really difficult, draining week. When I talked like a couple weeks ago, I mentioned just feeling drained from being out in the heat. I'm feeling like that same level of drain, but it's just emotional. So difficult stuff that you know, as I said, I'm not really ready to talk about. So we'll see how my coming week goes. I do want to share actually a couple of new favorite things that I picked up this week. So the first one is this cup. I just love it. It's got houseplants and a disco ball, and it says "My kind of party," or "My kind of house party." Sorry. So this is very cute. And then that was from Target. And then I also got from Kohl's, actually online, this little cat bat fake succulent plant. It's very cute. But these were like 2 for the price of 1, basically. So I kind of had to do it. It's like a hanging planter. It's very cute. So those, I don't normally buy a lot of the little, you know, knick-knacky stuff or cutesy stuff because I don't need more cups, that's for sure. And I don't need more cute knickknacks, but I couldn't resist. And as I said, I've been feeling a little bummed. So I let myself go a little bit. In terms of stuff that I watched this week, I guess, I did watch a lot. So it's been like audiobooks and watching stuff and just binging through things. I did get sucked into Dahmer, which everybody seems to be watching right now. It is really good in terms of performances. It has a very significant element of the ways that Jeffrey Dahmer targeted the LGBT community of color and was able to get away with things much more because of the fact that the police didn't want to interrogate that. They basically didn't want to confront that. And so many people in his life just wanted to, you know, look away from, you know, what he was doing and not actually face the fact that, you know, there might be something questionable there because there was gayness. So yeah, that has been very hard to watch, but I think it's a really solid portrayal. Then in terms of stuff I actually finished, I finished a lot of stuff. So I watched all of Drag Race season 9. That is fantastic, and I really liked the winner. Maid is when I started like a long time ago. I can't even remember how long ago. Probably not long after it came out, and that's been a long time. Yet another one with really fantastic performances, but it was so heavy, and at the time I was not up for anything heavy. I'm not really up for anything heavy right now, but I got hooked in and really just started watching through. And that one is such an amazing story of perseverance of this young woman who is going through an emotionally abusive situation and trying really hard to support herself and her child, and the ways that the systems don't work, basically, in order to let her do that. The ways that she's constantly kind of pushed back into her abusive partner's life. And I think it did that really, really well. However, it was really hard for me because I have empathy for the fact that she should be able to make difficult choices and incorrect choices and fail and not face the level of consequences and struggle that she did. Like, that is absolute truth. Like, society should be set up to help people that are in this situation. And it is a failure and condemnation of us that it's not. But it drove me crazy that she literally just makes every bad choice over and over and over. So yeah, I did struggle with that element. What else? What We Do in the Shadows. That's the last one that I finished up. So I was keeping up with that as it was coming out for the most part, and then I got a couple episodes behind. So I'm now caught up on the last season of What We Do in the Shadows. It's been great. I think this season's Colin Robinson whole plotline was very weird but very fun. So I really like the way that turned out. Yeah, I just continue to really enjoy that show. And I think that's it for all my week stuff that I want to talk about. In recommendations, I do actually have some recs this week. So first from BookTube, I have Sadie Reads Again, Sarah. She did a video on how to find free books, and it was pretty much the video I would make. Basically, she listed off all of my usual methods, so I'm gonna steal it and recommend it to you because yeah, she has all the great tips on how to get free books and what tools and apps and sites she uses. So really, really good stuff. And then I had an article that I really enjoyed from Electric Lit, and that was on misreading and mind reading in Persuasion and the Last Daughter by Emma Cantor. And this was a really interesting one to read right now because it doesn't actually bring up like the Lord of the Rings or what's the other one? Like the two big fantasy adaptations that are going right now. So this is all about adaptation from literature and capturing the interiority of literature in a film or a series adaptation. And so that was really interesting to read. So I will share that link down below. So that is it for my week, I think. I hope everyone is having better luck reading than me, but with all the comments, as I said, lots of people seem to be having slumps right now. So I think everybody is sort of struggling this fall. So let's hope we are jumping into a fresh, new October that is gonna see us all reading a whole lot. So thank you all so much for watching. I literally can't even. Just too cute. Ripley, are you just the queen? Huh? You just sit on your throne? Gumbo's over there.